Okay, folks. Hi, my name is Lisle Waldron. I am the multimedia manager for the University of Trinidad and Tobago, last island in the Caribbean. Having a ton of fun, beautiful day. I'm not going to boast on those people fighting winter weather. I have the esteemed privilege today to be the moderator for this wondrous panel. And I'm going to let all of my panelists let you all know who they are, where they come from, and we're going to have a lovely discussion today about maintenance and keeping things going and keeping things revving along. So let me hand you over. Let me see. Who do we start with? Eeny, meeny. John, you want to go?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is John Youse. I'm the Director of Educational Technology Support and Operations for Ivy Tech Community College here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Also the HETMA Board Chair for the roadshows. So happy to be here today.
Good stuff. And my buddy Matt, my brother from another mother. Matt, how are you doing, buddy?
Very good. Thank you for having me. And Matt Kaminski. I'm working at the University of California, Berkeley, and I'm with the Computing, Data Science, and Society, which is this building right there, 400,000 square foot building. We're moving in a month. I'm very excited about that. So everything we're going to discuss today, whether it's this session or the next one, is very relevant to my experiences, and I'm looking forward to share that. So everything about audiovisual and digital services. And I'm also the chair for sponsorship at HETMA as well. So I was at ISE with about 15 of us out there. So very grateful for the opportunity once more to be here with you today.
Okay, and wunderbar. It's fabulous. So I'm gonna get right cracking into it. I was looking at the title of our panel today, and it's called Engine Tune-Up Optimizing AV Systems for Peak Performance. And I started asking myself, guys, when you hear AV system tune-up, what does that mean or include in practice? Configuration, collaboration. What does it not include? So let me start there just to kind of get us situated. What do we mean? What do you all think of when you all talk about tuning up these AV systems?
You want to
Matt, want
start,
to go
John?
back to you?
Oh,
Yeah,
I can
Matt.
start. Yeah. So, I mean, it's very relevant. I'm already at my fifth capital project on campus in 10 years. So I've been helping different schools, and each time it's like the milestone is a large capital project being deployed. So I was able to learn from mistakes and also have the community of practice to be able to help me out to normalize some of those things. But what my ultimate goal is when it comes to optimization is the user experience and less customer service, right? I'm here to empower others to be able to deliver the best of the best they can to ultimately benefit our students. So user experience, it is something where I don't really compromise, but I'm also looking at something where I'm a 10-year-old and I need to operate the system. And all of a sudden, from this simple user experience, I'm optimizing everything where it's as easy as a 1, 2, 3 steps. You plug an input, it prompts you about what you want to do with it. Is it a Zoom call? Is it hybrid? So it needs to be shown online and in person as well. It doesn't need a recording, and then all normalized comments where everything works for you and not against you, right? The technology is supposed to be an enabler, and this is where the lesson learned as well is doing more with less is also very important. So we're gonna touch base a little bit more into the next session in about 2 hours, but I'm putting together some firewalls, as I may call them, where I can limit tier 2 level support as well, where, for example, Excite being a fleet management system that ping every single piece of AV devices that is connected to your network and give you a pulse check on everything out there.
Okay.
This prevents a lot of things where people don't need to find you when something is breaking down. You can automatically get an alert directly into an email or phone or a text or a phone call. We're also trying to prevent some of those things to fail is by leveraging also centralized AV over IP systems. So this is where I'm just tossing some ideas. I can dig to even more into that, but I also want to let John answer the question as well.
John, so straight to you. What do you we keeping this engine revving and going. What does this mean? What does this mean to you in real terms?
Well, kind of similar to what Matt's saying, we want to have a simple, streamlined experience for the user, I think is all. I mean, you want your faculty to be able to be up there and do their job and teach without having to fiddle around with, getting the AV system or the control working or the cameras or whatnot. So, what I've been trying to do in space planning is to, find out what those pain points are, for the faculty in the rooms, and then, do what I can to eliminate it and create a bit of a standard for the room. So it also, makes it simpler as you're trying to support all those different spaces by having very similar devices and whatnot in the rooms. So that is one aspect of, optimizing performance for the
For sure. I can't understate the importance of standardization. I know it's a bad word for some of us in the community, because we see it as a rigidity. There is a ton of flexibility in standardization, but to have that baseline to say, well, look, we know this is what a room could be or couldn't, is actually fabulous. Coming back, Matt, something that you just kind of touched on was a question I wanted to ask from an inefficiency or finding an efficiency perspective. So what would you say are like your top 3 or top 2 early warning signs that a room is in a problem zone or getting there or is becoming more inefficient for that end user before they start to complain? So you were talking a little bit about your system of getting those pings back in. What are some of those indicators that we should know as technology managers? I'm new to this. What is he talking about? I can find this out. What are the things that I won't see that I shouldn't know?
Well, I think the first thing first is really extending your network and going out to these conferences and seeing what's out there and trying to see if it's relevant to you or not. Another part is obviously being an active member of HETMA. I mean, no pun intended here, but I think it's like a mentee-mentor relationship that really help us out to not repeat the same mistake or be stuck in our, place and be able to share a community almost in a normalized way. What John was mentioning earlier as well is the fact of normalizing. It's exactly what I've done right now in my building is normalizing and scale. Okay, we talk a lot about user experience, but what it looks like in the back end is like a step and repeat and a normalized way to answer those tickets and to troubleshoot our systems and things like that. Those early things is also like, all right, we have to differentiate what's cool and what's very functional. For a while, I was always looking at like new things to implement, but is it really serving the community or is that a disservice to everybody at first? Because there is also a learning curve for people to leverage these technologies. Going back to your question, I think is still relevant to like the industry never stop evolving. There is always needs to improve something else. Is there a way for us to start to normalize some of those things? Sorry, my daughter's gonna come in. And also, can you hear? It's ski day today, Chrisley. And there is also another part is Zoom Room is really enabling you right now to close some of those gaps for online education. And so this is where now I'm introducing a new topic, which is teaching traditional AV methodology.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, and here is
I
my
always want
co-host right
FaceTime.
now.
Oh my God, she's so cute. Oh Lord. There you go.
But yeah,
you're
Zoom
talking
Room.
about Zoom rooms. Yes, continue.
So on Zoom Room, I think it's been a godsend on my end, I think, because funds were cut, right? With the current administration research funding at Berkeley, we've been cut out, and we really had to be able to operationalize the building and trying to find something that will be very inclusive when it comes up to equity of experience, whether you're trying to be in person or online. And Zoom Rooms really enable me to close that gap, whether you're in person or in online as well. You will be surprised to see that the people in the classroom will launch a Zoom call to be able to see the screen better, whether they're on the first row or the last row in the amphitheater, they will be able to see exactly the same content on their personal devices. So for an equity and experience standpoint, it's something also that has been very enabling on my end. And then obviously the cost. I did like an EDICOS presentation on Lunch and Learn with Zoom and Logitech. My savings were 45% savings from like a Crestron system to a Zoom room enabled by, Logi Gear and other things like that. So all of a sudden, 40% save is pretty much I can
for
do
one.
2 rooms for
2 for
one
1.
budget,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can duplicate, step and repeat. So again, normalize and scale the same user experience. And all I like to describe that is I'm surfing on the COVID wave where
Mhm.
people were on Zoom and able to have the same kind of UI or user experience or even designs on the controllers. It's something that is very relevant to me because user adoption is just very consistent.
Powerful. I mean, thinking out of the box, coming back from the keynote we had, and just really being on the front of that wave of thinking like an innovator. So, John, I mean, let me bring the same question to you because I think this is really important for those of us who are still wrestling with figuring this out. What would you say, like your top 2 or 3 early warning signs that something's coming, it's going down? How did you get there? How did you figure this out before you get to user complaints?
Well, for my situation, we do not have a lot of rooms, as in almost none, that are on like an AVIP or even an HD-based type of infrastructure. We're still all like VGA cables and projectors hanging on the ceilings, with 3 or 4 remotes in the room. So what we do currently is basically sneaker net. We're doing room checks, pretty much before the start of every semester, trying to make sure everything's operational. We're tracking hours on bulbs, making sure that we are changing things out or switching things before we have problems with stuff going down. And, kind of looking to the future, again, utilizing kind of the power of the community here in HETMA. I'm getting all kinds of ideas on what can be done, to do something budget friendly and scalable at cost for my institution that can take away the need for sneaker net
Yeah.
and walking around from building to building and from room to room and to get higher quality digital signals going. uh and I'll give a shout out to Textbox because I've been working with Jim Reinhardt
Oh,
uh
yeah. Shout
on
out to
the
Jim.
there is a program he's starting to try out, get going with HETMA, for piloting some of his rooms in institutions like mine. So I'm very happy to, you know, try and utilize not only his knowledge and some of his technology to try and get something in here at a good cost for our university.
So
Well,
actually talking about cost and efficiencies and doing more with less, this is where I will also invite all the manufacturers to come visit my building and trying to see the impact they have at scale as well. So they can also see the vision what I'm having beyond that. And this is where I will pick up the phone. And I see Chris right there, Chris Dietrich from Bayam, who just came to see me last month as well. But like I had every single manufacturers that have a place in the building, they came to the building and they visited it and they saw the impact. But also it helped us out to have almost this trust relationship, as I will describe it, that will go beyond just the designs of the consultant that will be, selected to do your building. And to me, for example, I arrived too late to change a lot of designs, so I had to pick up my battles. Everything was analog AV for a building that is coming live this year with discontinued gear from Crestron and other various manufacturers. I just had to pick up the phone and call these people and say, hey, would you be willing to work with me? And this is where I was able to get an exceptional approval to work on the network side of the house to accommodate AV over IP. But why I define that as a very important part for me is one, we are the School of Computing Science, but yet we don't leverage any of those type of features within our own practice, which was a disservice for us. But also is trying to empower us to not always be running after a ticket and be able to, I would say, empower our positions and the people that are doing tier two to almost become project manager and people working on larger projects and have a little bit more of critical thinking going behind that and re-empower and grow this position within as well. But cost is definitely something that you look after and trying to be creative. Find a small cohort, pilot a lot of things together,
mm-hmm,
see what
mm-hmm.
works and doesn't, and slowly start to scale those things. This is how I approach all my projects so far.
Oh, this is wonderful, and I do want to point out, John, we all have to start from probably the same place. The thing about it is, I think one of the understated things as tech managers, we design processes, and our processes can go from sneakernet to full automated, full digital workflows. So it's really good to get this kind of range in the discussion, especially for people. I've been that person coming from the islands as I am and not being in the States. Sometimes you hear something at the big schools and it's like, well, will I ever get there? The answer is yes, and you all have really done a good job. Let me do the plug for HETMA again. For HETMA as the community to come on board and find people that can have these discussions with you. I think I'm finally happy, Matt, that y'all are all broke now, just like me. So we're all broke together. All right. Finally, y'all are finally here. It's just like an exchange rate. Good times, good times. Let me do one lightning round question just to break up our pace a little bit. Tell me, guys, what are your policies on firmware patching? Do you go latest stable? Do you stay there until it breaks? Or are you the risky guy who goes, oh, new firmware, let's update and see what happens? Matt, where are you?
All the above. I think I will blindly trust the Zoom Room APIs and the Logitech Sync updates on the hardware side when it comes up to the Crestron, Extron gears together. Caveat to that, I have a SLA with my integrator most likely going to happen. And those patch needs to happen regardless, because if you still want to either leverage new feature or be more efficient, you still need to take a risk assessment to trying to see the impact behind that. To
Yeah.
me, all the single, like the 100 spaces I'm managing right now, are operating between 8 and 5 or 8 and 8 p.m. The classrooms are used 12 hours a day, every single day, beside one day on Sunday. So it gives me little room for mistakes. But then this is also where you start to schedule those maintenance, like all of us in the industry, during, holiday breaks and things like that. So, hey, I don't work for it to break. I would think I will know some early warnings, again, because of Excite being deployed, for example, or leveraging some of those cloud platform like Cloud XIO, QSys Reflect, and all these places. They already tell you like a decent pulse check on that. But if there is a feature that you really want on those new patch, yeah, you're gonna have
Yeah,
to
you have to dive
try
in. You
to
have to
patch
get
it.
wet.
Yep, yep.
You gotta dive in. I think my technisha, she's on a flight right now, so I can say that I too am on the bleeding edge of falling off. John, where do you stand on this very high risk situation of firmware updates?
I tend to be a little more risk adverse than that, and I'd rather try out those patches and firmware updates in a test environment or a test room before I released it into the wild.
Oh, it's to the wild for me. Let's chaos is fun, right? Apparently. All right. Right. Let's just we go there. So, but this is a good question. I think it's leading me into another thought that I have for you all. So, how do you manage, and I'll come back straight to you, John. How then do you manage configuration drift? How do you maintain, okay, this is where we are with firmware, or this is where we are with configs over months, sometimes years? What are you using for that? Pure documentation? Do you have a lot of running around to do to try to bring everybody to some kind of parity? How does this work for you?
Well, I mean, currently, I don't have a lot of firmware patching to do, because we don't have that with kind of these old LCD projectors.
Lucky
Uh,
you.
but if I did, it would probably be, some centralized management system, with whatever we end up going with in terms of, our digital future here.
Yeah, you're switching a control system. Matt, where would you be at with this? How do you treat with or deal with the potential for configuration drift? You needed this feature in this space, but you didn't need it that much in the other building. Are the buildings different? How does that affect your whole
Well,
vision for maintenance and
yeah,
support?
I mean, it's still very relevant to my capital project right now, where you spend $10 million in AV, and then yet you're still missing some critical portion, like video control features. The cameras were scoped, they're not like AI features, and they disabled. Zoom room or hybrid option is not available. Digital signage is not present, or to some extent. And so how you tell your story and seeing what's lacking, I actually come up with a budget now. I'm asking again for another $100,000 for additional features, which, for
Oh,
example, enabling NDI and putting a TriCaster on top of that to do like large events being broadcasted or even simulcasted into different rooms. This will be powered by Viz RT. And little things like that where it's very relevant. Again, it's about doing more with less. It's
Yes.
less expensive to run NDI and have a TriCaster centrally located in your building where you can control up to 24 sources on the video side. And then you have your Dante virtual licenses as well, where you can allow you to plug any type of audio sources from the building and beyond, right? And so when I saw this 2 years ago with VizRT and starting to work on some NDAs with that Zoom plugin, for example, that was just announced at ISC, it is just game changing. But also talking about those new features, all of a sudden, I'm going to have a suite of 5 studios. I don't want to be fixed to one studio for one layout. I'm going to build a virtual studio. And when I call that, it's about green screens, augmented reality. So any type of things that I'm trying to do, any mediums will be able to be accommodated. Imagine all of a sudden, you just roll in 2, 3 pieces of furniture, but you can accommodate a fireside, a public speaking, state of the school town hall, like a brief Q&A session with a panel, everything in a virtual set where I can literally bring you, Lisle and John, in the same room, and nobody will know that we are not in the same. So it's just like all those type of features that I'm looking into, again, to really have like a student enhancement journey, but making sure also it's relevant to what we're looking at. Running one version behind is always a safe net, I would say. But when it comes up to the hard gear on the question side, it's a bit tricky.
Indeed. Oh Lord, this y'all are now prompting me. I'm thinking now. We've discussed a little bit about standards. We've discussed a little about those attempts to homogenize ourselves in terms of software and configurations. But where are we on some maintenance things? So let me ask, and I'll come back to you, John. What does preventative maintenance look like for you in the now? And that by that I mean what actually gets done. Monthly checks, quarterly validations. Do you do an informal recertification? You're on SneakerNet, so we have some running around to do. What does it look like in the real world for others who may have similar things?
Yeah, generally for us, it's before every semester, during those breaks when we have some of that downtime, I guess, as it were. Although, I mean, we're all in AV, there's no real downtime. When you've got that time when the classrooms are open, you're getting in there, you're, doing all of your equipment checks and checking bulb hours. And if things aren't looking right, then you do what you have to pull a projector or replace a bulb or do those kinds of things to make sure that again, you have that ideal experience for your faculty where they don't have to worry about the technology and they can just teach.
Yeah. That's the underpinning for me too. Just, we have to keep this thing up and running so they can teach. I've never met a member of faculty who has enough class time. Matt, let me throw that right to you. So what does preventative maintenance look like at Berkeley in Matt's hands? What does it actually mean on the day-to-day?
Well, this is where we have 2 different things. The first one is the general assignment classroom. They are managed centrally by research teaching and learning, and it's all about, again, that normalize and scale type of situation. I think they are patching about 10, 15 classroom each semester, and they keep trying to catch up with the other versions. But there is always this cycle of like, you'll have maybe 50% of the rooms that are up to date, and then you have 50% of the rooms that are out of date. And it's always very hard to keep going up and up, right? To my end, I have the luxury of only managing one of the school, yet it's the second largest building on campus. So I'm having people working with me on the IT side, which is like network patches on the network side with AV over IP. Also on my end, everything relevant to the Zoom room appliances. These are easy ones to patch. I never really run into some issues to some extent. But when it comes up to like the code heavily and the firmware and the patch updates on the question gear, Extron and things like that, I'm thinking of putting an SLA, service level agreement, with my integrator, which are the one who created the code, know all the designs and back to like end to end, and probably do that on a yearly or every 6 months basis. But obviously, this represents a lot of money. AV over IP still can simplify a lot of things, but I'm still heavily relied on the code. And this is where I have to be extra careful as well. When it comes up to computer iOS updates and things like that, we're trying to have this being automated because also we have our own Berkeley image on those computers. So therefore, there is a recurrent update happening even when we're not even looking.
Yeah. Oh, Lord, that makes so much sense. And now this is where I hope my techs are back on the call, not for when I'm saying controversial things, because you all have described the in-between that, we rest as UTT ourselves. Preventative maintenance pre-semester, make sure every classroom, every learning space that we manage is ready to go. And then, well, in our case, we do weeklies, which is why Nisha was in Tobago today. We have a weekly rostered rotational schedule. And yeah, Matt, it leads to that same 50% of the code base is older than the other 50%. We only have 2 hands each if we had more one day. So let me get another hot button one in here. I want to ask you, John, if you have to think about it, you've been doing this for some time, which maintenance tasks you think produce the highest returns for the least amount of effort? What is that thing that you do that you're really glad you do it because you get the most value out of it, but it really is a very low bar in terms of what you're faced to do on the day-to-day out there?
That is a really excellent question.
So I'm going to let you continue staring to your left and go to Matt, and I'll come right back to you. Matt, we do this like family,
I'm not
like family
preaching,
feud.
but honestly, the Zoom room and the Logitech gear,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
That's
thinking,
the most
yeah,
bang for your
you.
buck, and
Yeah,
they are starting to demonstrate a lot of potential for larger spaces as well, and how they integrate with DSPs and things like that flawlessly. And so for me, for a while, it was like, all right, what do I do? How do I do it? And again, I'm in Berkeley, so I'm in the Bay Area. I'm very close by the Silicon Valley, and their headquarters are like 15 to 20-minute drive from me. So it's very convenient. And by the way, I will commit to a roadshow in about a year or two. It's already in conversations. You guys will be able to come see the building as well. So you will be able to see HQs as well. But yeah, I mean, teaching traditional AV for Zoom Room is definitely something I've seriously considered, because again, everybody knows how to operate it. The UI is very consistent. The operating system is consistent. There is a single pane of glass that allows me to see and do things remotely as well from wherever in the world I am. I can control these rooms. I can automate them. I can patch them. And you can literally build your gear around Zoom Room as well. And thanks to either the HETMA approved programs, but also the Zoom certified hardware,
you have
you
a
can
very
almost
good
build a
sense.
classroom now that is very consistent. And
Yeah,
this is like, do more with less. Again,
with less.
all those prize or awards I got at the IOHEad AV awards last year were telling about doing more with less, best use of emerging technology, but it's also because I need to be very creative, but yet consistent when it comes up to scaling those things as well. Because, okay, I'm on a budget, but I don't want to be on a budget, right? It's just like
You
there
don't want to
is
be
like
like
a
me.
minimum requirement, and then I
You don't want
won't
to be
budge
like
from that.
me. You don't want to be like me. You don't want to know what my yearly budget is. John, let me come back to you. While you do that, I'm going to calculate what my yearly budget is right now for maintenance and repair. Oh, M&R is crazy. So what do you think is that lowest? I'm seeing a ton in the chat, and I'm aligned with all of it, but I'm going to come back to you, John, first.
I guess, for me, where we're at, probably just acting on the issues we find in those room checks.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather pull a bulb out of a projector too early than, get that trouble call when, a faculty says it's
100%.
stopped working or blown or what have you, during their class time. So I think that gets like the highest rate of return in terms of, goodwill.
Lowest output. Yeah, agreed. And I mean, it's coming hot and heavy in the chat. Mike Peterson, he's agreeing on that. I mean, Joe is accusing Matt here of insider trading. I don't think he is, Joe.
I see that now. But he knows.
I want to promise I don't think he is, Joe. But I mean,
if it works, it's worth saying it.
No, and you're right. And in many ways, it's something that I too, and I'm happy to hear, Matt, that kind of feedback from it. Since they released the APIs and it was available, it's something I want to get into. But myself, being the chief cook and bottle washer, it's been like, oh my God, what thing do I not have to do? But yeah, John, I'm with you. I'm with Mike. I'm with everybody else in the chat. And that for me, the lowest bar with the highest rate of return has been just doing those checks on the weekly and on the pre-semester. As soon as we get back the policy things in from the governance teams for student assistance, again, having them do it will be that lowest bar. So, I cannot not agree more. I would throw in one curveball, or rather a link to our next session that's coming up. One of the things that has helped us over the years has really been Crestron Fusion. Having that on-prem has helped because it kind of has told us and given us some of those warnings, just like you said, John, about that bulb that we know is going to go bad. So at a minimum, because we are a RTF university, Lisle is not an RTF guy. That's run to fail for anybody who did not know. But I am in a run to fail university. So at a minimum, John, that bulb that I would love to just take out because it should come out, I have to RTF it, but the whole team knows because of Fusion, that's the room that we may have to scramble first thing in the morning for at like 7 a.m. So, again, it's that nice little bridge between, where you are, John, and some of the stuff that Matt's talking about. All right, where are we on time? We're doing well. I want to give at least 15 minutes for people to come in and kick in with some contributions. So let me get down to something that we all would like to not have, I would like to believe, consumables. If we're talking about keeping the engine running, how are we on oil? How are we on filters? What do consumables look like for you, Matt, in the middle of this Zoom room revolution that you're going through? Do you still have them? Wear items, things like if you're using any lavaliers, do you do live event support? Talk to me about some of those things if it's still relevant to you. How do you
Absolutely.
handle those consumables without creating too much downtime?
Well, obviously the concept is to have every single meeting room operating with Zoom room in a normalized way, so it's easy to swap gear whenever something misfires. When you buy gear at that scale, you will automatically fall into some type of customer service SLA agreement with the
SLA, yeah.
manufacturers that will be able to either give you 10% of stock, so let's say a full Zoom room build up as a replacement. The failure on those items, though, I mean, I haven't experienced too many issues. When they started, it was a bit tricky to understand the structure and the nomenclature behind the business. But now, like almost 7, 8 years later, it's much simpler. And we can talk about needs, we can talk about poly and all those other places as well. The all-in-one systems are really working well because also they are based with the Android-based platforms. But to some extent, people might be limited to that. You don't want to commit to either Microsoft Teams or Zoom. You want both, or you don't have any and you bring your own device and things like that. So I have some storage, yes, but not much. But this is where the portable solution come in. If something misfires, I want to be able to just troubleshoot and go. If it's too late and there is like back-to-back meetings or classes, this is where I'm looking into buying an Artome portable projector up to 300 inches that can just come in and roll in. There will be Zoom room power and Shure microphones in there as well. Faculty going out of the classroom with some microphones in their pockets and things like that is something that was always happening as well. So I would say I have 5 portable systems ready to be deployed, a portable PA system as well. But yeah, right, preventative maintenance and making sure those things are ready to go. But you always need a plan B and C as well.
Makes sense.
I'm dealing very well in the pressure because I used to be a nurse in ER. So there's no death and life situation in AV, but at least you be ready. And shout out to our students, student workers as well, that are just always here to cover, up to tier 2 and always show up. But something that is also very important is how you categorize and document all these incidents. And this is where Excite, for example, will be able to normalize those incidents in a way that at the end of the year, you can take these reports and tell you, well, room B is always misfire, and this is exactly what's going on. You can tell the stories through data versus trying to tell the story, but not even be able to back it up either. Same thing for Logitech Sync, for example. You can pull out a report at the end of the year and tell you, these are the rooms that are misfiring all the time. Is it a user error? Is it hardware? Is it software? What it is? And all of a sudden, people will trust this judgment because the data speaks, it's not you.
Yeah, the data.
Sometimes
start and then read data.
Yeah. Why do you want that, Matthew? Because it's cool? No, it's because we need it.
Correct.
Littlest things
It's
like
not
that.
me. This is what is happening at the actual uni. I think for me, this is one of those big things that I'm going to lean on AI heavily to do a lot of that data interpretation and what we're going to do with it. John, over to you. Same general thought, same idea. How do you handle these consumables? Do you have that many that you're still fighting with? I suspect you may. And if you do, how do you keep it running?
Yeah, I mean, our consumables just basically come down to those traditional bulbs and projectors and, some batteries and things. We kind of, run lean on our stock because, I mean, basically we can get things pretty fast when we do need them. I just have a couple, things on the shelf for when we do need them. We have, and as far as portable equipment, we don't have all that many instances of needing it
For the need of it, yeah.
in any other than like live event support,
Yes,
things like that
yes.
that are going on in conference areas and whatnot. So we've got a little bit of that. I've actually, we've been we're moving to a different building and talking about storage. And I'm like, well, I need some, not a lot, not like I used to, because most of the old transparency projectors and CRTs that are in our storage now are just going to get recycled and go away. So I don't need all that extra storage space for those types of technologies.
Fair enough. I've got 3 more topics for us before I want to pass it over to audience. So one from a performance validation perspective, what performance issues, or which performance issues rather, have you seen that you would think, John, user perception problems versus technical problems? And how have you been measuring the difference, especially in communicating that back to the end user?
So things that they're finding as problems with.
Yeah, and I often, like, this to me is ticklish because I don't like to blame the end user as the beginning, but there's sometimes when they think it's the system, but it's them. Do you have those, and how do you handle those? Yeah, Matt laughs because he knows
The,
those.
those are always very ticklish situations because sometimes you can get that call to the classroom and you're there with the prof right in front of however many students are there, and all you end up doing is like pressing one button, or it's like, oh yeah, here's where you share your screen on Zoom. So
Windows key and P.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you always just gotta handle it with a little bit of grace and maybe just a little bit of
Yes.
humor. So they're like, oh yeah, it slipped behind your window there. So here you go. I got that set for
Yes.
you. You're good to go now.
Hey,
Yes.
it's job
Matt.
security right there.
yeah.
They don't see it until they see it, right? I'm just like
Correct.
when I describe what I do, I say it's everything that is not a computer or network or printer. Um, and so you're right, 90% is user error at some point, but also it's something else, right? I'm the School of Computing, Data Science, and Society, but what it says is it's a lot of engineers, electric engineers, robotic engineers, drone engineers, and others. So they know how to bypass some of the systems sometimes, or walk over with like different cables. So I started to put pink HDMI cables in my digital signage and things like that. So I know each time something is misplaced, I know where to find it. But also because Excite allows me to tell me like each time something is unplugged or misfires, I will have the report right away before actually even Christian or QC's Reflect can find it for me. But yeah, 90% is user error, I would say. Trying to keep your UI and your documentation as simple as possible.
Yep.
Again, the less is more. When I'm building my resource page for my website right now, it's only 4 bullet points per room type. So whether
Oh,
it's like a
good.
lecture hall or a classroom, a hybrid classroom, a multimodal classroom, where I call that the high flex version, powered by my God, I just forgot. Crestron, One Beyond Systems and things like that. And then the event space is just like 5-step process. You need more, click here, and then you get a full-blown like step-by-step manual. But how many times people visiting this? Never. So I leave a QR code on the touch panel. People can walk them through. There is video tutorial as well. And obviously I'm placing kiosk in high traffic areas, vertical kiosk powered by Zoom Room, where people need help. They just click on the call button and it will call the first person available to answer, whether it's IT, facilities, or AV.
Yeah.
And also a normalized ticketing system that can ingest any type of request. Again, whether it's AV, IT, or facilities.
Facilities. Yeah, yeah. A homogenized ticketing system is usually best for schools that like to create efficiencies. Not all of us are in schools that like to create efficiencies. Okay, we're on the home stretch. Let me continue the people side of this conversation. How do you build a culture with those same end users that some of us in the chat love to blame? How do we build a culture with those end users, guys, where we get them to report any issues that may have been missed in our preventative maintenance regimes that we've been discussing? We get them to report these things early and accurately. And to do that without, let's say, flooding our help desks or our ticketing systems with just noise. How do we instill that culture with our end users? What do you all have seen work? John, what have you seen work for you?
It just comes down to good old-fashioned relationship building, really, and getting to know and work with your faculty. Sometimes they don't understand the differences of where, like, AV and IT end. So
Always.
sometimes, we get a lot of those questions about how do I make my computer work and do this and that. And like, instead of just pointing the finger and say, okay, you need to go talk to IT. It's like, no, well, let's take a look at that and work that out. Because most of the time, I mean, as end users ourselves, we understand what to do,
Yes.
with that stuff. So unless they need help with their account, I mean, my team and I, we just help them. We're not going to
Correct.
send them to somebody else. I don't like to pass people off around when they come looking for help. It's like you came here for a reason, so we're going to try and solve your issue, even if it's not necessarily, in our purview. So, and when you build those kind of relationships and solve problems for people, I mean, I think they learn to turn to you and reach out when they have
Yeah, they
those.
see you as a resource. They see you as somebody they could count on who understands, which is so
Yeah.
cool. So
And
yeah,
never treat them like they've you know been a bother on your time, so that they feel safe, coming to you and say, hey, this thing's screwing up, I don't know what's going on, can you take a look at it and fix it? I'm like, yeah, sure. And just
yeah.
being personable.
So I take a
Like,
pot shot to the guys in the chat. You see, guys, we don't just blame the end users, we uplift them, we elucidate and enlighten. Matt, what is your enlightening and elucidation looking like?
well, I think it's all about building trust in a community, right? Way beyond what you're trying to do and how your story is really relevant to everything else. It's because we are doing customer service, right? It's beyond just the hardware side and just leave it aside. It's educating them to educate you as well on features they would like to see and things like that. And on the other end, there is also a lot of things that are very relevant to how we could do more with less. Again, it's still the same thing, but being on the ground and be able to listen to what's going on and how things are being done is also very important. But when I was talking about that ticketing system that could normalize response as well, it's something very relevant when it comes up to don't let the user tell the story on what's going on and how it's going, because all of a sudden they might not know what they're talking about. They might not have the subject matter expertise that is relevant to our industry. So normalizing those queries when it comes up to ticketing system by just having a check mark or a drop line on, like normalizing ticketing as well is super important. And then another one is obviously training the trainers, right?
Yes.
And holding those things. And you can define like who's here to just operate the room or who's here to try to build something amazing and leverage the maximum amount of technology possible. So you have like the regular user and the power users as well. So again, consistency, equity of experience is something very important as well.
Okay, this is wonderful. Building that culture, I think, is so meaningful. I could second that point you made about subject matter expertise. We've just been really crusading with program heads for us back home here. I had meetings up to this week where we're trying to get them to understand it's not enough to have your faculty coming to us and saying that they want a microphone. That's handheld lavalier, microphone array. What do you need it for? Nobody speaks function. Everybody tries to get into the tech, because tech is so democratized now, right? Everybody has a PlayStation at home and an HDMI cable. so it goes. So let me get to what I'm gonna call the pinnacle of this discussion we've had so far, which is really we're talking about extending lifespans. A lot of us here are going through budgetary things. So even for a keynote speaker, we're now talking about 7-year lifespans in the age of AI or beyond. In my case, RTF. So I want to ask, what life cycle practice do your teams, guys, do, or rather, what life cycle practice do you think teams may be neglecting that could end up shortening the lifespan of our classrooms, of our classroom systems? So what is that one thing that you do that you're glad you're doing because you know it's giving you that extension on your systems?
Oh, educating the C-suite, definitely.
Damn, there you go.
That's my first thing, is having like that open door policy between both parties to be able to just talk clearly about what's going on and how it's going, because it's literally an essential portion of teaching now come with educational technology, whether it's online or hybrid or even in person. Everything now needs to need some level of head take. And I know there was some publication being done outside with different podcast solutions saying, well, AV techs are just pushing an AV cart and that's it. Well, no, guess what? This is much more than that. And this is why we also had HETMA in here to scream out loud what we're doing and how we do it and how important it is to enhance the student journey. But you're right. To me, it's educating the C-suite on the first place on what needs to happen and how things need to happen. When it comes up to yearly budget, I'm trying to yield some portion of that budget to have preventative maintenance as one thing, yes, but then capital project as another one. I told you my project is $10 million right now for that 400,000 square foot building for AV. But hey, guess what? In 10 years, everything is going to start to fall apart. I mean, I say 10, probably 7. How are we going to manage that? How are we going to line this up on our external relationship folks to try to fundraise for that and trying to make sure that money is secured? And again, keep focusing on doing more with less. I'm very hopeful that AV or IP methodology will be even more simpler when it comes up to more simpler. Wow, French Matthew. Simpler when it comes up to scaling those things as well. I'm really looking forward to the future. And I'm always benchmarking myself with the private sector. So top 500 companies, again, I'm very grateful to be in a geographical location where the Silicon Valley is. So I can tap into other industry and see how they do it.
Yes.
Which, matter of fact, next week I will be at LinkedIn headquarters and Trulia HQ as well to see their infrastructures.
Ensuring that the C-suite knows that there's a CapEx, OpEx conversation to have for sure. John, let me throw this to you. What life cycle practice do you think teams neglect that does the most to shorten the lifespan of these systems that we manage?
Yeah, I think kind of along Matt's line, you definitely have to have some sort of replacement funding in place. Because Chris Dietrich just posted in the chat, you can't build new projects and just walk away.
I mean, you could, but it's not going to work out well.
Yeah, you've been saying that your institution is, RTF, and ours is very much the same way. I mean, they don't mind spending money on IT. We just got, all new switches statewide. I mean, great. I mean, that was sure, cheap, I'm sure. But they don't have that same view of AV. So kind of as Matt's saying, one of my battles has been, to convince, people in the C-suite, the administrators, that this is something that akin to IT, you have to have a life cycle budget for. I mean, these things fail, they're going to fail spectacularly. And, to do that, I'm trying to tie, AV technology to teaching outcomes.
Yes.
Students expect a lot. Our faculty expect a lot when they come here, and, they want it to work because, again, I mean, students pay good money to get an education, and they don't want to have to spend their class, watching a guy, writing on a whiteboard all the time. So
chalkboard. Yeah, exactly.
Chalkboards.
Exactly right. We don't want those throwbacks. Okay, so this is good. Just two things on my end to button this up before I throw this over, because the chat is active right now. So that's cool. I like it when it's lit. On my desk, I'm again right between both of you all. We did have some of those conversations in our lunch break, where some of you all may heard me, speaking about some of those things from my thesis. So I'm 100% in agreement with we all need to do better to communicate to the C-suite importance of I did do the math on my yearly budget. My yearly budget is currently, I'm talking for all my maintenance and repair, it's about 35,000 US. Everything, whole university, 10 campuses, 2 islands, 243 classrooms. The thing that I'm now trying myself to get the president and the provost to understand is that is a reflection of 0.001% of the yearly budget of the university. So if this is a core part of underpinning it, and this is the way that we have to reform these conversations, how much money did the university spend on those switches? Okay, cool. So I'm happy we have those switches, not taking anything from IT, but what I'm asking for represents 0.05% of the cost of those switches.
I was about to chime in about that because I feel like AV always comes last. And this is
Yes.
something where I keep trying to push that forward and educate people beyond the C-suite. It goes to the chancellor office, to the office of the president as well.
Yeah.
And who owns the keys to capital project, where we will put a bid out there. It's beyond my control and our control on campus to be able to see who's going to be awarded the project as an integrator. Sometimes people you never heard about, and you have your habits to working with like 5 to 10 vendors on campus. Why has been selected? Because it was lowest bidder. It's always about that. So now again, it's like mentality about, yes, doing more with less, but then all of a sudden you might get a disservice to that as well because the integrator is not familiar with
for sure.
AV over IP,
or your
Zoom rooms and
standards
things
or
like
anything.
that.
Yes.
And obviously for the integrators am I listening to here as well, it's obviously Zoom room is a threat to the industry when it comes up to the bread and butter and the labor that is being charged for us to build the codes, how to empower that and tell the story in a relevant way. It's also because we need people out there to tell our story and be able to have a bit more impact when AV comes last, and it's just very frustrating for us.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, that's it. And then, but you're right. Like, if you have to compare and say you spent $3 million on furnitures, but you spent $35,000 on AV, what do you want me to do with that? And then your students are frustrated, your faculty is frustrated.
So, I mean, I think that's a fantastic way for us to close, or rather open the floor to the flood of comments we're getting. I think one of the things that helped me a lot is in my educational journey. I remember when I was doing my MBA, I had a finance lecturer. He always said that money requires a comparative metric. $100 is not a lot of money if you're buying a car. But if you're giving it to like a 7-year-old, at Disney World, that's a hell of a lot for a 7-year-old. 7-year-old's like, wow, I don't know what to do with this. So in the same way, I think as we ourselves do better in our communication upwards and managing upwards, one of the things that we may need to begin to understand is where do we sit tangibly in the scope of the university as an operation. If your university's yearly budget is $500 million a year and your AV budget is $1 million a year, you have a case to ask your president just real nicely. So how important is this? How important are these classrooms you're talking about? Because I don't know if you know this, but the CFO has us at 0.01% of your total budget. So hopefully we've given you all some ideas, chat, for how these conversations could come. And more importantly, hopefully we've given you all some very cool ideas on how to keep the engine tuned up, right? And optimize a lot of your AV operations. So I do want to open the floor to any questions that we may have with my $35,000 budget a year. How do we get things done? Shoestring, no strings. Just crack your mic and let's go. It's a HETMA affair. This is how we go.
I'm going to give you a key to my success on how to get the college to spend money, at least from my behalf, is I play the faculty up the chain. So because if the faculty complain or if they want something, I have them go up through, then eventually I say, it will come to me eventually. It will come. Give it time. It will cut the red tape, because that's what happened. Pre-COVID, I have about 80 classrooms and meeting spaces on campus. They were falling apart. Straight falling apart is that there was enough conversation that as soon as we went into shutdown, our CFO at the time goes, Ryan, now is the time to start planning. So that was the caliber to restart the whole system. That was my clock restart. Thank goodness for COVID money. I ended up with like 3.5 million to redo our campus. So at that beautiful time, I know one of our platinum people in here, Extra, and I basically built out, and this goes to the whole conversation that we've had, was that standardization. every classroom smells, touch, tastes the same. They have the same controller, the same switches. It's all on the network. It's all through GVE. I can basically control everything as a single sole person. So that also comes into maintenance. Every morning I come in at 7 a.m. I have my reports sitting there. I know what classrooms have gone down. I know what classrooms are working. I can go out in the street before anyone even gets here, get them fixed. They never know. Hear a peep or a word goes down. But then it goes to like, the projector situation and changing bulbs, is that I can see all that ahead of time. Even if you don't have Extron stuff, there is software packets out there. You can network these projectors and see where your lifespans are at. But then it goes to maintenance. The maintenance that I usually do is it's twice a cycle. As soon as we're done with the semester, I hit the streets. It's cleaning. It's going through everything, testing everything. So if you have this life cycle and cycle setup of everything, it will get you what should last you 5 years to 7 years. Because that's how we do it. Like even standardizing cables, our campus as a whole is allocated buildings. I have basically an old Holiday Inn. I have an old Social Security building. I have an old florist building. So all of our cables, we have nowhere to run them or conduits under the floor. They're all going into plugs in the wall. We found that having just standard network cables, we're failing all the time. So we ended up going to the Nutric cables with Nutric jacks, so that when people bumped up against them, and then wall plating. But the joke is that our podiums have wheels. We actually came up with our vendor a dog chain system. You put your dog on a leash at your house and take them for a walk. We put all our podiums on leashes, so if the faculty moved them, it wouldn't rip the stuff out of the wall. Hello, little one. So, but just having those little things and in a 5-year or 7-year plan, at least that is what's worked for me. And then putting the faculty in the position, but hey, what's going on with you? If I can't resolve it, why don't you take it to faculty forum? Take it to your certain groups internally, and then bring it up through your provost and through the pipelines across to the CFO that comes back down the IT chain. So hopefully that helps.
Do a survey at the end of the semester is something I do to see like what works, what doesn't, improvements, what really sucks, right? Because sometimes you work on assumption and experiences, but at the end of the day, your faculty cohort might be different, and from like a medical campus to engineers might be completely different scope.
Cultures
but again, like you're right about the single piece of experience, like keep it consistent. Even though the UI might have some like power user feature, but by the way, it's like I have the dumb controller for like the easy 1, 2, 3 solution. But if I have taught like a power user to be able to enable like a few more features on the AV controllers, then they have a pin to tap, and then they can switch to like a better UI as
hidden
well.
menus. I use some hidden menus too. Okay, let me just get one more in real quick because I don't want Madam President to fire me from HETMA. So Travis, we're gonna get you in there, Travis. You're gonna be my last contribution, so make it count. Let's go.
Right. So I'm actually curious. How do a lot of people have their AV? If you have an audiovisual unit or department, is it part of IT, or is it part of its own thing? I mean, in my case, I'm part of facilities, which I find improved over being part of IT. IT's ticketing system does not really, I feel, work well with audiovisual. But I am still struggling, as I was sort of mentioning in the comments here, that I've been in my role as a supervisor of audiovisual for nearly 15 years, and because there isn't actually an audiovisual unit for the entire school, where I'm School of Medicine, where I work, and I'm just now starting after 15 years to get some attention on that. And the idea we have I have like a couple buildings that I help out with, and then I'm lent out to other areas when they need consulting on room builds, because there just isn't anybody there. And so getting people to acknowledge where to go when they need that help, is a real challenge.
So I'm getting this from Atkins in the chat because I know for the States it's pretty much for sure IT. So he's saying that on the ETC listserv, there was a poll and it came back at 95%. I could say just from an international perspective, I could not dream of being in my facilities department. The facilities, at least for us in this neck of the woods, they're very much the word I'm going to use is trades money. So if you know tradesmen, masons, electricians, plumbers, they don't really espouse that frontline tech, break new barriers culture. But I can see it from an American perspective. I know enough facilities departments. Look, I've seen AV departments out of library systems, as crazy as that may sound. I think it's SUNY Downstate, my buddy who worked for me as my second in command for years in Trinidad before he migrated. I think he's now out of the libraries, but they may be in a restructuring. So it can get wild, to be honest with you. I'll come back to your question in the chat so we could wrap, because it is 4:30. I'm not even too sure we need to have a CEO type position specifically for AV. I think, and I'm not saying this because it's the Dr. Lord, I forgot the titles, Joey. But if you look at the UCLA model, I think there's a ton of value in that, if for not else, in terms of pushing the industry as higher ed AV forward into an interesting space. So I will leave you on that. So you all have some homework to go take a look at their org chart and what they're doing. Joe's team, even the name of his team, for crying out loud. I'm like, yeah, that's dope. All right. So folks, again, I started off with it being a privilege. Now for sure, it's a super privilege. I want to thank John. I want to thank Matt. I want to thank Matt, baby Matt Jr., Matty. I want to thank all of you all for participating as you all did. You all always make me feel like I matter in HETMA. You all, you see how you all do this thing?